Chapter 31. A new opportunity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 31. A new opportunity. Translator. Leg editor. Leg. He's really a doctor, someone from the band asked in a slightly doubtful and disbelieving tone. Could we have misunderstood him? Luo Xinyu was even more puzzled. Wang Fugue thought, there's no misunderstanding at all. He only became a doctor 2 days ago. But he wasn't going to tell them that since he wanted to entirely distance himself from the matter. Y'all were saying that I recommended someone who was sick in the head to be your guide, but I didn't. Just look, he really is a doctor. That can't be right. Let me try to remember. A soldier from the private army thought for a while and said, what did he say the last time we saw him? Congratulations. Father and child are both doing fine. The baby weighs 3.24 kilograms, someone answered. That's right, who says something like, father and child are both doing fine. That soldier said angrily, someone like that can even become a doctor in this town. Seeing them recall word for word what Ren Xiaosu said, Wang Fugue explained, aren't we living in conditions where medical treatment is not so good? But it's absolutely true. He is indeed our town's doctor. If you don't believe me, you can ask the people around here. Wang Fugue then walked a few houses down. He knocked on a random door and asked, is Ren Xiaosu our town's doctor? The person who answered the door was taken aback momentarily. Yes, he is. How are his medical skills? Wang Fugue asked again. That person gave him a thumbs up. Who in town is not praising Ren Xiaosu these days? The band members were lost in thought again. They turned their heads back towards the clinic and saw that there was no one at the window anymore. You were saying that he's the only person who can bring people through the Jing Mountains, asked Luo Xinyu, having calmed down. Yes. Wang Fugue gave it some thought and said with a smile, actually, I can't guarantee that he'll take you through. But if even he can't do it, no one else in this town can get you there. You're almost praising him to the high heavens. Luo Xinyu sneered, tell him that he has been recruited. We'll set off again after we've rested and reorganized the group. Don't, there's no use telling me about this. Wang Fugue gave a sheepish smile and said, if you want to recruit him, you'll have to seek Boss Luo's permission. Boss Luo? How's he related to Boss Luo? Luo Xinyu was stunned. I don't know the exact details, but you definitely can't just recruit and use him as you please, Wang Fugue stated. Luo Xinyu snorted in disgust. At this moment, the soldiers who reported back to the stronghold returned with news that they could enter. Soldiers stationed atop the stronghold walls slowly raised the portcullis. Without another word, Luo Xinyu led her group back into the stronghold. Wang Fugue patted his chest in relief. In fact, he had been afraid that they would try to settle the score with him. But fortunately for him, he had struck up a good relationship with Boss Luo because of the black medicine. If he did not throw this name out today, he would probably have gotten severely punished even if he would not have to die. In reality, even Wang Fugue himself was unsure of how powerful Boss Luo was in the stronghold. But whenever he threw this name around, he could get a deep sense of how damn useful it was. Wang Fugue went to knock on the clinic's door as he wanted to discuss the matter with Ren Xiaosu. But even after knocking for a long time, no one answered him. Wang Fugue muttered, could they bear a grudge against me? The next morning, Ren Xiaosu opened the clinic on time and got ready for business. But as soon as he opened the door, he saw Wang Fugue standing outside with a smile on his face. Ren Xiaosu snapped, what's the matter? You see, I recommended you to them back then with good intentions. Wang Fugue said, it's a chance for you get into the stronghold. Do you know how many people out here want to get into the stronghold? Everyone wants that. Why don't you seize this good opportunity for yourself? Ren Xiaosu said unhappily, I'll draw a map for you to lead them there. If you manage to bring them there, you'll gain entry to the stronghold. I can't go. Wang Fugue flinched. I'm not as skilled as you. Besides, what will my son do if I end up getting into the stronghold? Since I'm so old, I can find a wife out here as long as I'm willing to spend some money. But there won't be anyone who will be interested in me if I get into the stronghold. Ren Xiaosu said, you may have a son, but I also have Lu Yuan and big sister Xiaoyu. What will happen to them if I get into the stronghold? If you recommend me to them again, I'll make Lu Yuan and big sister Xiaoyu go to your place and leech off of you. I'm only doing this for your good. Wang Fugue was exasperated and said, if I were 20 years younger, would have gone. For my own good. Ren Xiaosu sneered. I thank your whole family. Wang Fugue also got angry. I thank your 8 generations of ancestors. Gratitude received from Wang Fugue, +1. Ren Xiaosu was confused. He raged at the palace in his mind, how can this also be fucking considered as a gratitude? You're even assessing it to be sincere. You must be fucking doing this on purpose. Ren Xiaosu could never have expected to gain his 9th gratitude token in this fashion. It was too easy. However, even though Ren Xiaosu knew that Wang Fugue was thinking of getting friendly with the celebrity from the stronghold, he had indeed recommended him to them out of good intentions. But the problem was that Ren Xiaosu did not really wish to get into the stronghold. But if Yan Luyuan were allowed to go in instead, he would probably have already agreed to take on the task. Ren Xiaosu thought for a moment before saying earnestly, Old Wang, I'm serious. I can't abandon Luyuan and big sister Xiaoyu to get into the stronghold myself. Stop suggesting that I be their guide. Wang Fugue was also starting to get fed up. Okay, I understand. You can rest assured that as long as Boss Luo does not give his permission, they won't be able to take you away. This journey will take over 3 months to complete. If you're gone, who's going to supply the medicine to Boss Luo, right? Okay, as long as you understand what I'm saying, Ren Xiaosu said. At this moment, a man came up to Ren Xiaosu from the road and said, Doctor, I want a consultation. Enough talking, I've got a patient to attend to. Ren Xiaosu turned around and went back into the clinic. Ren Xiaosu sat behind the table and said to the man, Where's your injury? Let me have a look. I'm not injured, my balls ache, the man said. After he said that, the nurse, Xiaoyu, who was standing nearby blushed in embarrassment. Ren Xiaosu felt a little awkward as well, so he tried to be professional and asked, Do you experience the pain after intercourse? The man was taken aback. It hurts all the same whether I finish doing it or not. Ren Xiaosu was at a loss. What the hell is going on with the newest patients who come for a consultation? After he advised the man and sent him away, he reaped yet another gratitude token. Alright, no matter what illnesses they might have, it was fine as long as they could earn him some gratitude tokens. Now that Ren Xiaosu had earned 10 gratitude tokens, it seemed like he wasn't that far from unlocking his weapon. One of the reasons why Ren Xiaosu did not want to be the group's guide at this moment was that he felt that it would be more convenient to earn gratitude tokens while in town. If he were to go with the band and private army, would they show their gratitude for him? For some reason, Ren Xiaosu was consistently looking forward to getting the weapon and wanted to find out just what on earth it looked like. Since sincere gratitudes were so hard to come by, the weapon would not be terrible, right? Chapter 32. Dreams are always the opposite of reality. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 32. Dreams are always the opposite of reality. Translator. Leg editor. Leg. Perhaps the band was in a pathetic state, as it took them longer to reorganize. They did not come out till several days later. According to what they had said, the band and the private army would have to make a trip to the Jing Mountains no matter what. It was only a matter of when they would get there. What was there in the Jing Mountains? Ren Xiaosu always felt that these people's desire to get to the Jing Mountains was far greater than responding to the invitation to perform at Stronghold 112. The Jing Mountains spanned a vast area. Up until now, no one had really explored the hinterlands of the mountain range, so what kind of information did the stronghold's overseers receive? In the morning, Yen Luyuan went to school happily with his new school bag that was recently sewn up by Xiaoyu. When he arrived at school, he realized that something was off. Why were all of his classmates staring at him as soon as he entered the room? Yen Luyuan ignored them as he took his seat. However, all of the students crowded around him. A strapping girl, Li Yuqian, who was the daughter of old Li from the grocery store, said to Yen Luyuan, "Luyuan, can you go back and tell your brother to stop making the class stay late?" "That's right." Wang Fugui's idiot son also complained, "By making the class stay late every day, none of us have time to play anymore." Yen Luyuan was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He said helplessly, "If what I say is useful, he would have already stopped making the class stay late." Everyone was unhappy to hear him say that. Li Yuqian sneered, "It's not like Mr. Zhang is paying your brother. I heard that your family doesn't lack money these days, so why is he so serious with the teaching? What, does he intend to take over at the school already? He's just a substitute teacher, but that doesn't mean he can tell us what to do." Ow! Li Yuqian let out a cry of pain. Yen Luyuan got up and kicked Li Yuqian in the hip. No one had expected Yen Luyuan to get angry. They heard Yen Luyuan sneer, "What my brother taught you is knowledge that can help save your life out there in the wilderness. If you don't appreciate it, that's fine. But why are you making things up about him behind his back? If anyone mentions this again, don't blame me for being harsh on you." Yen Luyuan turned 14 years old this year, but Li Yuqian was already 16 years old. Although they were about the same height, Li Yuqian was much stronger than Yen Luyuan. Back when Wang Fugui tried to introduce Li Yuqian to Ren Xiaosu, Yen Luyuan had mentioned that she was a strapping girl. He was not lying at that time. But when the other students saw Yen Luyuan in this moment, it was as though they were watching a miniature version of Ren Xiaosu. The ferocity that exploded from both of them was exactly the same. Even though Yen Luyuan often spoke harshly to people, his appearance was much milder and gentler than Ren Xiaosu's. But why did the mention of Ren Xiaosu make him react so strongly? Only now did they realize that there was a wild side to Yen Luyuan. Li Yuqian had wanted to get up to return the blow. But when she saw Yen Luyuan's expression, she reluctantly dropped the idea. "I didn't make anything up about him. I was just telling the truth." Yen Luyuan felt trapped. He was obviously the last person who wanted Ren Xiaosu to make the class stay late. The schoolteacher, Mr. Zhang, came in from outside with his hands behind his back. "Why are all of you crowding around each other? Get back to your seats and prepare for class." All the students hurried back to their seats. Although Mr. Zhang looked quite kind and amiable after school, he was sterner than anyone else during lessons. Wang Fugui's idiot son, Wang Dalong, sat down beside Yen Luyuan. He was Yen Luyuan's desk mate. Wang Dalong stole a glance at Yen Luyuan. When he saw Yen Luyuan still sulking, he tried to change the subject to resolve the awkwardness. "I had a dream yesterday that my father found me a stepmother. She mistreated me badly." Yen Luyuan glanced at him. "It's all right. Dreams are always the opposite of reality." Wang Dalong beamed with joy at the words. "True that." Yen Luyuan thought for a moment before saying, "I think he might have found you a stepfather instead." Wang Dalong was confused. That evening, Ren Xiaosu and the others were having dinner. After dinner, he was planning to catch up on the lessons that Yen Luyuan and his classmates had gone through at the school today. But at this moment, he saw an angry Wang Fugui leading a crying Wang Dalong into the clinic. "Ren Xiaosu, come out." Ren Xiaosu was stunned, holding a bowl of rice in his hand. "What's going on? Ask Luyuan what he said to my son." The moment he got home, he started crying non-stop. Wang Fugue got even angrier when he recounted what his son had told him while crying. Ren Xiaosu looked at Yen Luyuan. Yen Luyuan, who was sitting obediently in his chair, said. I told him that old Wang might have found him a stepfather. Ren Xiaosu was confused. With a loud wail, Wang Daolong cried even harder. Ren Xiaosu looked at Yen Luyuan. You're in the wrong this time, Luyuan. How can you say something like that to someone? He turned around and comforted Wang Daolong. Don't worry, your father will find you a stepmother. It's impossible that he'll find a stepfather for you. Wang Daolong was stunned. He didn't want a stepmother either. He continued crying. This made Wang Fugue so angry that he cursed. I really have you to thank for explaining it for me. Gratitude received from Wang Fugue, +1. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu's eyes lit up. Although he felt that it was a strange way to gain a gratitude token, it was still a gratitude token. For some reason, Ren Xiaosu felt that a magical door was slowly opening for him. His gratitude tokens had accumulated to 11 just like that. Wang Fugue suddenly seemed to remember something that caused his anger to subside. He cautioned Ren Xiaosu, our town's administrator, Chen Haidong, unintentionally let slip something yesterday. He said that something strange has been happening at the other strongholds and that the same thing also seems to be happening at Stronghold 113. What is it? Ren Xiaosu asked in a serious tone. He didn't seem to know the details. Wang Fugue said, I'll let you know if I have any news. Anyways, be extra careful. It's usually not good when there are strange occurrences happening these days. After Wang Fugue left, Yen Luyuan asked, why did old Wang say that it's usually not good when there are strange occurrences happening these days? Ren Xiaosu gave it some thought and said, maybe it's because our definition of what is good is too limited. We only call things that are advantageous to us good. Are we wrong to think that? Yen Luyuan asked. To be honest, even though he went to school much more than Ren Xiaosu, he was not as hard-working as him. Ren Xiaosu would always read the books that he borrowed from Mr. Zhang while Yen Luyuan lazed around. Sometimes, Yen Luyuan thought, since Ren Xiaosu is already so capable, why would I need to work so hard? Ren Xiaosu looked at Yen Luyuan and said, remember this. It's not wrong to think of it that way. Whatever is beneficial to us is good. There's nothing wrong with being selfish. But I want you to have a line you won't cross and to not be a doormat others walk over. Chapter 33. What are you waiting for? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 33. What are you waiting for? Translator. Leg editor. Leg. Whenever Ren Xiaosu educated Yen Luyuan, Xiaoyu would quietly watch them from nearby. All of a sudden, she felt a little envious of Yen Luyuan. If someone had guided her in the past, she might not have taken so many wrong turns. Bro, can you teach me more about life lessons from now on? Yen Luyuan asked enthusiastically. Ren Xiaosu gave him a look. Don't you always fall asleep whenever I teach you such things? How can I teach you? Through your dreams. I won't fall asleep next time. Yen Luyuan looked at Xiaoyu and laughed in embarrassment. All of a sudden, someone knocked on the front door of the clinic. Frowning, Ren Xiaosu turned around. There normally wouldn't be someone coming to look for him when night fell because it was not safe in town. What was going on today? Could it be that Wang Fugue had turned around and come back to the clinic? In Ren Xiaosu's opinion, Wang Fugue was likely the only one who would come to their place at such a time. After all, the two households were right next to each other. Even if someone intended to use this opportunity to carry out a crime against Wang Fugue, he would have already reached the clinic before it could be carried out. Ren Xiaosu said as he opened the door, Old Wang, you really need to find a wife. Why do you knock on our door every day? But when the door opened, Ren Xiaosu was taken aback. It was not Wang Fugue. Ren Xiaosu recognized this person. It was a young man who often idled around town named Zhang Baojian. He did not work and lived off his parents who worked at the factory. Ren Xiaosu asked, "What is it?" He examined him and saw that he had no injuries. Why did this person come here so late at night? If he wanted to rob the clinic, then this guy had traveled quite the distance for that. Ren Xiaosu now possessed a strength of 5 and a dexterity of 4.1 and had many years of experience in ruthless fighting against others. Not even 10 versions of a young man like Zhang Baojian would be a match for Ren Xiaosu. Zhang Baojian said rapidly, "Doctor, please take a look at my illness. But you must keep it a secret for me." Ren Xiaosu thought about it and stepped aside to let him in. He purely felt a little curious. "So tell me, what's your illness? Don't feel uncomfortable to share. I've seen much in life, so there isn't any illness that I haven't come across before. Please wait a moment." Zhang Baojian was still quite polite to Ren Xiaosu. There were many young people in town who lived off their parents like Zhang Baojian who came together to steal, extort, and fornicate. No one in town was willing to provoke them without reason. However, Zhang Baojian was not foolish either. He knew better than to offend Ren Xiaosu. In fact, no one had dared to provoke Ren Xiaosu either. Although it seemed like Ren Xiaosu was similar to this batch of youngsters, the townspeople well knew that offending Zhang Baojian and the others simply meant having to put up with a slight retaliation from them. It wasn't difficult to endure it, and it would be a trivial matter at most. But if they had messed with Ren Xiaosu, they could end up dying. Zhang Baojian closed the clinic's door behind him before turning around to ask, "Doctor, something strange is happening to me." Ren Xiaosu frowned and said, "I can't treat you if you're impotent." "It's not that." Zhang Baojian said, "Let me demonstrate it to you. Don't get surprised." Ren Xiaosu waited to see what would happen. He saw Zhang Baojian open his mouth and blow a saliva bubble. Ren Xiaosu rolled his eyes. "Is that it?" But the next instant, the bubble that floated out of Zhang Baojian's mouth popped. Ren Xiaosu could feel a burst of power from it pushing him backwards. It wasn't very strong, but it was definitely not something that your ordinary saliva bubble could do. "Doctor! Doctor, what are you doing?" Zhang Baojian looked at Ren Xiaosu uncertainly. "I'm just checking to see if any of your saliva splashed onto me." After tidying up his clothes, Ren Xiaosu asked, "When did you gain such a power?" "This is not an illness, so I can't treat it. But my parents said that I'm sick and that there's something wrong with my head," Zhang Baojian explained. "If I didn't come to see you, they wouldn't feel at ease. My parents are very fond of you." Ren Xiaosu felt that this sounded a little strange. But he thought for a while before saying, "What you have doesn't seem like an illness to me. You might have heard of some people possessing strange powers these days." Ren Xiaosu was not lying. Once upon a time, someone in this world supposedly had a superpower that could pull a train out of thin air. The townspeople used to share this story with excitement, describing it in vivid detail. But when it happened to them, why did they end up labeling it as an illness? When Zhang Baojian heard Ren Xiaosu tell him that he was not sick, he thanked him with joy. "Thank you, doctor. I'll go back now and tell my parents about it." Gratitude received from Zhang Baojian, +1. Then Zhang Baojian turned around and left. Ren Xiaosu thought to himself that this kid was still quite a polite person. However, Ren Xiaosu did not like youngsters who were like Zhang Baojian. After all, if you did not work hard in this era, you couldn't survive. The reason these young people had it so easy in life without doing anything was simply because their parents were still around. All parents worry about their children. But some parents were willing to give up everything they had in life to ensure their children could lead a good life. The next morning, Wang Fugue quietly walked into the clinic. He pulled Ren Xiaosu aside and whispered, "I have news. Chen Haidong just found out about what happened. It seems like someone in another stronghold suddenly attacked their stronghold's overseer with a superpower. They're now investigating the existence of supernatural beings in all of the other strongholds. So such people really do exist. Is that so? Ren Xiaosu asked with a look of shock. Then could there also be supernatural beings around us? Who knows? Wang Fugue said with a laugh. This doesn't really have anything to do with us. That's true. Ren Xiaosu laughed along with him. However, he was thinking about what happened the previous night. He wondered if Zhang Baozhen had told anyone else about it. It was a good thing to have someone as gossipy as Wang Fugue around. As this guy was close to the people from the stronghold, he was able to find out about any news faster than most people in town. It was no wonder that Wang Fugue could lead a better life than most of the townspeople. To his credit, this was probably the best expertise that he had. Suddenly, Wang Fugue gave a silly laugh and asked, Xiaosu, if I had a superpower, would it be easier for me to find a wife? You can forget about it. Ren Xiaosu teased, you're still thinking about that when your fool of a son is crying so hard over it. Bullshit, my son isn't a fool, Wang Fugue said unhappily. He can't poke his nose into my business. Besides, I was only bringing it up. Once I have a superpower too, wouldn't you already have one if you had any? What are you waiting for? Ren Xiaosu interrupted. Wang Fugue could not come up with a reply. Chapter 34. The Misfortune of Others. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 34. The Misfortune of Others. Translator. Leg Editor. Leg, don't mind me saying this, old Wang, but why are you always thinking about finding another wife? Ren Xiaosu could not understand. There's no shortage of women in our town, right? I'm sure many of them wouldn't mind being with you as long as you can ensure they won't go hungry. Such matters were a common sight to Ren Xiaosu. Even men were like this, much less women. In the past, several women threw themselves at Ren Xiaosu just so they could survive in these harsh times. Some men did so as well, which made Yan Luyuan want to gag when he learned about it. This was why Yan Luyuan was so wary of Xiaoyu at the beginning. Sometimes, reality was stranger than the fiction found at Mr. Zhang's school. Wang Fugue shook his greasy, medium-length hair and said proudly, would I want those immoral women? With my status, I should at least be looking for a proper lady to marry, right? Yes, yes, you're the esquire of our town. Ren Xiaosu gave him a backhanded compliment. At this moment, two women walked past the clinic. Wang Fugue's eyes lit up. What do you think of those two? Ren Xiaosu examined them. One of them looks really good, but her figure is a little lacking. The other one isn't that pretty, but she has a good figure. So then, if may I ask, what do those two girls have anything to do with you? These words made Wang Fugue choke with anger. He was so furious that he turned around and got ready to head back to his grocery store to attend to his customers. However, a surprising turn of events happened. They saw the stronghold's portcullis being raised slowly. The sound of steel, wood, and rope rubbing against each other left people cringing. The dense, thick portcullis was being raised bit by bit. The weight of it left people short of breath. Chen Haidong came out of the stronghold with a group of soldiers. This time, the officer leading the private troops was not Wang Songyang, whom Ren Xiaosu had dealt with before. It was a fresh face that had never been seen in town before. Where was Wang Songyang? Did he get punished by Boss Luo? What are they going to do now? Ren Xiaosu wondered. I don't know. Wang Fugue had a blank look on his face. He brushed off Ren Xiaosu and headed towards Chen Haidong. Due to the distance, Ren Xiaosu could not hear what they were talking about. Then they saw the private troops of Stronghold 113 running towards town. After a while, they returned holding a man captive. That man screamed hysterically, "Why are you arresting me? Let go of me!" Ren Xiaosu watched silently. The man, who got arrested turned out to be Zhang Baozhen, the person who came to look for him last night. When Wang Fugue saw the private troops arresting people like that, he quickly stopped them. My dear officers, what is going on here? Although this guy might be a little mischievous, he didn't commit any major crimes, right? Get lost. The private army's officer sneered. Facing the dark and unfeeling firearms, Wang Fugue could only back off. Otherwise, they might just shoot at him. Wang Fugue spoke to the town administrator, Chen Haidong, again for a long time. In the end, Zhang Baozhen was still brought into the stronghold. The screeching sound rang out again as the dense and heavy portcullis separated the two worlds once again. Ren Xiaosu went up to Wang Fugue and asked, "What's the situation?" He had to clear it up because he knew that Zhang Baozhen must have been arrested and brought into the stronghold due to his superpower. Moreover, both he and Yen Luyuan possessed such a power too. Wang Fugue sighed and said, "It's over, that kid is done for." "Why do you say that?" Chen Haidong said that guy showed off his superpower to a scoundrel friend of his yesterday. That scoundrel sold him out as soon as possible. All of the strongholds are weeding out these supernatural beings right now. If there were no incidents of a supernatural being attacking a stronghold overseer, it might have been easier to handle. But now, they've become the people the overseers dread the most. What would you do if you were afraid of someone? Kill them, Ren Xiaosu answered calmly and firmly. See, that's where the overseers of the stronghold are different from you. Wang Fugue said with a frown, the first thing they thought of when they realized the danger of this was not to kill them but to understand them better. Chen Haidong mentioned that a yard and building in the stronghold have been vacated for a psychiatric hospital to be temporarily set up. They've also sent a lot of medical devices over to that place. Are they going to treat these supernatural beings? Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment. Treatment? My ass. Wang Fugue said, Chen Haidong said that those devices are not meant for treating people. They were previously used for scientific research inside the stronghold. In just one day, the stronghold has arrested 3 supernatural beings. Those 3 people are more or less done for now. Ren Xiaosu felt a chill pass through himself. He could not imagine what it would feel like to be stuck in a psychiatric hospital and be studied by someone. Old Wang, are you still keen on getting a superpower? Ren Xiaosu asked. Wang Fugue thought for a while. I don't mind having one, but I won't be so dumb as to let anyone know. The same goes for you, Xiaosu. If you and Luyuan have any superpowers, don't ever let anyone know. Ren Xiaosu put a strange expression on his face. Okay. That same night, a major incident happened in town. Zhang Baogan's father found his way into that scoundrel's shack in the middle of the night, a place that was only a few square meters in size, and killed all 4 members of their family. In the end, he also died due to severe blood loss. Meanwhile, Zhang Baogan's mother hanged herself on the dead, wilted tree at the intersection in the town. Zhang Baozhen was the only child in their family and was pampered all his life by his parents. He didn't even have to work as his parents would take care of him. Now that he was gone, his parents had no reason to live anymore. In town, some people sympathized with them while others secretly mocked, what a show-off. So what if you have a superpower? And that Zhang Baogan's father, if he really had the courage, he would have charged straight into the stronghold instead. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu remembered the look on Zhang Baogan's face when he was blowing the saliva bubble. What a fucking awful era. The high and mighty aristocrats in the stronghold seemed to have the power to control the life and death of people, but Ren Xiaosu felt that this would change someday. The only thing was, nobody knew when this day would come. A group of people gathered together in town, gazing at the dead, wilted tree where Zhang Baogan's mother had hanged herself. Ren Xiaosu saw that Mr. Zhang from school was also around. Zhang Jinglin looked at some of the people next to him who had gathered around and said, "Did I teach y'all to be rubberneckers at school? Don't gloat over the misfortunes of others, lest theirs be yours." When he said that, several young and strong men beside Zhang Jinglin looked down in shame. Zhang Jinglin sighed and said, "Help bury the couple together in the same place." "Teacher, we have to go to work at the factory now," a few of the strong young men said hesitantly. Wang Fugue said, "You won't be working for nothing. I'll fork out 800 yuan for their burial." The strong young men answered, "We'll get to it immediately." Chapter 35. Maxing out on gratitude tokens. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 35. Maxing out on gratitude tokens. Translator. Leg editor. The mood in town turned heavy due to the issues surrounding Zhang Baojian. Even though everyone was accustomed to living under the rule of the stronghold, when they realized that their right to life was not within their control, they grew gloomy. Ren Xiaosu had something on his mind all day. Based on what Wang Fugue had told him, Zhang Baojian was more or less done for the moment he got captured and sent to the psychiatric hospital. After the people from the stronghold finished conducting thorough research on him, he would surely have suffered terribly even if he did not die. Most importantly, Zhang Baojian had lost his freedom from this day onwards. As for Ren Xiaosu himself, his secret was much bigger than Zhang Baojian's. He had unlocked many features of his mind palace, but there were still many other features left waiting for Ren Xiaosu to explore. Even Ren Xiaosu himself did not know how deep the palace interior went and what level it would elevate him to eventually. If his secret were revealed, it wouldn't be surprising if he got taken away by the people from the stronghold and had his brains taken out and sliced apart. Ren Xiaosu had gone to school earlier and found Yan Luyuan. He somberly instructed him to not reveal his secret to anyone and told him that this concerned their life and death. The two brothers did not have the ability to take on the stronghold yet. Inside and outside of the stronghold, thick and continuous trails of white smoke were spewing out through the factory chimneys into the sky. The clock in the stronghold was still ringing on time. It was as though nothing had happened. Today, Mr. Zhang seemed a little downtrodden. Sometimes, his mind would wander as he delivered his lessons. Whenever his students reminded him that he was losing his focus, he would bow and apologize to them. Finally, Mr. Zhang said, "Students, I'm sorry. I can't teach well today due to some personal issues. Class, study by yourselves. We won't be having any more lessons today." Ren Xiaosu did not go back straight to the clinic. He wanted to calm himself down at a quiet place like the school and think about the future of Yan Luyuan, Xiaoyu, and him. When Ren Xiaosu took over the lessons in the afternoon, he did not teach anything new either. Frankly, his mind was not present at all today. By the time school ended, Ren Xiaosu surprisingly did not make the class stay late. He was only concerned with getting Yan Luyuan home early. Ren Xiaosu said, "Class dismissed. I won't be teaching y'all about other things today. All rise," the class monitor said. "Thank you, teacher." Gratitude received from Li Yuqian, +1. Gratitude received from Wang Dalong, +1. Gratitude received from. Ren Xiaosu was stunned by this. There were only 24 fucking students in the entire class, but he managed to gain 23 gratitude token coins when he dismissed the class. Yan Luyuan was the only one he didn't earn a gratitude token from. Yan Luyuan had also noticed that Ren Xiaosu was a little absent-minded today, so he was more concerned about what was happening with his brother rather than thinking about going out to play after school. Ren Xiaosu stared blankly at the little bastards as they ran away and disappeared without a trace. So they didn't like his lessons after all. Y'all better fucking watch out. What is so bad with my teaching? It was a very fascinating day. Ren Xiaosu had worked very hard for nearly a fortnight just to earn 12 gratitude tokens. But in just one day today, he managed to gain 23 gratitude tokens. The total amount of his gratitude tokens had reached 35. It seemed that he was another step closer to unlocking the weapon. After Ren Xiaosu carefully weighed the pros and cons, he decided that if they did not like his lecture, then so be it. It was good enough as long as they let him earn those gratitude tokens. For the following day's lessons, Ren Xiaosu went straight to school instead of attending to patients at the clinic. He understood what he needed to do. What was his reason for opening the clinic? Was it to make money? That was definitely not the case. Now that he had found a method to quickly earn gratitude tokens, how could he miss out? The schoolteacher, Mr. Zhang Jinglin, was not even finished with his lesson when he saw Ren Xiaosu already standing outside the classroom. The students followed Zhang Jinglin's gaze to Ren Xiaosu. For some reason, when they saw him, a shiver ran down their spines. Today, Ren Xiaosu did not teach his usual wilderness survival lessons. Instead, he taught them about where to deal a fatal blow to another person during a fight or how to make an opponent instantly lose control of their motor functions. Ren Xiaosu himself had not actually received any related training in this field, and there were no places in town where he could learn something like this either. Therefore, everything he was teaching was accumulated from his years of experience in being involved in ruthless fights with others. Zhang Jinglin frowned when he heard Ren Xiaosu teaching them how to fight other people. He did not like to teach such things to the students and usually taught them about how to combat nature. There would be a psychological suggestion that humans were the enemies if you taught the students how to fight against other humans. Similarly, if you taught them how to take on wolves, they would regard wolves as their enemy as well. At heart, Zhang Jinglin never hoped for his students to become violent extremists. But for some reason, when he thought about Zhang Baogan's incident, he couldn't help but let out a sigh. In the end, he did not interfere with what Ren Xiaosu was teaching. Ren Xiaosu said to the students from the lectern, which are the most vulnerable parts of a human. If I have to list them, I'd list them in order of importance. Let's start with the one that most people know. The neck. In fact, this area is not particularly easy to aim for when you are fighting someone. That's because a person will subconsciously protect it the most. The entire neck and trachea are made up of bone and nearly 20 fragile rings of cartilage. By crushing any one of them with an attack, you can instantly cause your opponent to lose their will to fight. The fragmented bones will quickly block the delivery of oxygen, which will then lead to them suffocating to death. The classroom was silent. Ren Xiaosu looked over everyone. Are there any questions? Wang Dalong asked meekly, how do you know that there are nearly 20 fragile rings of cartilage in the neck? There were no relevant books in school, and no one in town specialized in this subject either. If Ren Xiaosu had not counted them himself before, how could he possibly know something like that? But how did Ren Xiaosu count them? Whose cartilage did he count? Thinking of this, everyone felt a little nervous. Ren Xiaosu did not answer this question. He looked out at the sky as the stronghold's clock rang to signal that it was 4 p.m. Ren Xiaosu said cheerfully to everyone, class dismissed. All rise. Thank you, teacher. Gratitude received from Wang Dalong, +1. Gratitude received from. Ren Xiaosu suddenly frowned when he realized that the number of gratitudes was incorrect. Shouldn't he be seeing an increase of more than 20 gratitude tokens? Why were there only 9 tokens? These little bastards had gotten used to him not making the class stay late this quickly. They didn't even give him any sincere gratitude now. I'm afraid that y'all haven't faced the harsh realities of society yet. Just as the students were about to rush out of class, they heard the sinister voice of Ren Xiaosu reverberate from behind them, everyone, get back here right now. Today, I'm gonna teach y'all how I came to learn how many rings of cartilage there are. Wang Dalong and Li Yuqian were speechless. So was the entire class. Chapter 36. Parents watching their children die. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 36. Parents watching their children die. Translator. Leg editor. Leg. Since Ren Xiaosu had explicitly told them to come back, would the students dare to disobey him? The students had gone home and complained about Ren Xiaosu's misdeeds to their parents, but their parents' reactions were all identical. It's good that the teacher is teaching you more things. You should be grateful for it rather than complain, understand? You mustn't complain, especially not to your substitute teacher. The students could not understand this. In the past, the parents would side with them. But this time, they were all siding with Ren Xiaosu. Furthermore, why did their parents' tone sound a little strange? The students felt that there was something wrong with their parents' tone, so they kept at it and continued complaining. Li Youqian's father, Li Fatsai, said in a heartfelt manner to her, "Stop asking, dearie, and concentrate on your studies. You mustn't trouble your teacher, Ren Xiaosu, anymore, understand? Dad doesn't want you to leave this world before he does." The strapping girl, Li Yuqian, was shocked when she heard that. What did her father mean by, "Dad doesn't want you to leave this world before he does"? Hence, the students now behaved exceptionally well in front of Ren Xiaosu. The moment he called them back, the students all rushed back to their seats like scared fledglings. Once he started teaching again, he lectured until it turned dark. As the sky darkened, the students stared blankly at Ren Xiaosu as he got more and more enthusiastic with his teaching. Finally, Li Yuqian could no longer stand it. She said meekly, "Teacher, it's getting dark. It won't be safe for us if we don't go home now." When the students previously said something similar, Ren Xiaosu would dismiss the class immediately. As such, when Li Yuqian finished saying that, all the students looked at Ren Xiaosu in anticipation. However, Ren Xiaosu said kindly, "Don't worry, I'll be fine." On this day, Ren Xiaosu lectured all the way until 8 p.m. before he finally dismissed the class. Night had fallen by this point. Ren Xiaosu did not receive any gratitude tokens at the end of the lesson, but he did not mind. The Stockholm Syndrome effect said that if there was no cruelty, how could there be gratitude? "Let's go, teacher will send all of you home," Ren Xiaosu said even more kindly. The students looked at one another. They suddenly felt that the substitute teacher, Ren Xiaosu, seemed to possess some kind of remarkable skill. In the past, Ren Xiaosu would definitely let the students return home before the sky darkened because it wouldn't be safe if they went back home any later than that. But this time, Ren Xiaosu didn't find it much of an issue to waste a bit of time, as long as the students could learn something useful. They had to understand how cruel society could be. Although it might be a little unsafe for ordinary people to lead a large group of children, it was not so for Ren Xiaosu. He was nearly twice as strong as the average adult in town, so the issue of safety was negligible. As long as someone didn't have a gun, Ren Xiaosu had nothing to be afraid of. Ren Xiaosu personally handed the students over to their parents one by one in order of the distance they lived from school. When some of the neighbors saw Ren Xiaosu sparing no effort to impart knowledge to the students and even sending them home personally for their safety, they felt that he was a great teacher. The parents did not know why Ren Xiaosu was doing this and simply considered him a kind and generous person. Thus, just this act of sending the students home had earned Ren Xiaosu 6 gratitudes from the parents. Ren Xiaosu felt that he had not fully taken the initiative before. After working so hard to heal people and save their lives, he had only received 12 gratitude tokens. But ever since changing his mindset and way of doing things, his gratitude tokens shot up to 50. And the only price to pay was that Yan Luyuan refused to talk to him for the entire night. To be honest, the total duration of the daytime classes was only about 5 hours. Before Ren Xiaosu took over as the substitute teacher, the students could never have expected that the survival lesson would last for a full 5 hours. The next day, Ren Xiaosu could not wait to go to school. However, the schoolteacher, Mr. Zhang Jinglin, was the first to voice his opinion. He pulled Ren Xiaosu aside and said, "In the future, you mustn't dismiss the class so late. There should be a proper balance between work and rest when it comes to learning, and it has to be done gradually as well. Even if you want to impart unto them all your knowledge, you still have to do it slowly." Ren Xiaosu humbly accepted Zhang Jinglin's suggestion. "Teacher, you can rest assured that I will definitely not make the class stay late today." Yan Luyuan was indifferent when he heard the conversation between the two of them. Of course he knew that Ren Xiaosu would not make the class stay behind today. His purpose for doing so yesterday was just so that he could harvest a wave of gratitudes from the students today. Yan Luyuan knew Ren Xiaosu too well. As Yan Luyuan predicted, the moment the stronghold's clock rang to signal 4 p.m. in the afternoon, Ren Xiaosu smiled and said amiably, "Shall we end the class here, everyone?" Everyone in the classroom was silent. No one knew why Ren Xiaosu would ask such a question. If they answered yes, wouldn't it mean that Ren Xiaosu was bad at teaching? But if they answered no, they were afraid that Ren Xiaosu would grant their wish of not wanting to end the class. So they simply kept their mouths shut. Ren Xiaosu said with a smile, "There should be a proper balance between work and rest when it comes to learning. I imparted so much knowledge to everyone yesterday, so I'll not make y'all stay late today. On one hand, this is so that everyone can process the knowledge you've learned. On the other hand, it's so that everyone can relax a little and have some fun today." The students were so touched that they nearly cried. Class dismissed. Ren Xiaosu said. "All rise." "Thank you, teacher." Gratitude received from Li Yuqian, +1. Gratitude received from Wang Dalong. Gratitude received from. Like the day before yesterday, Ren Xiaosu reaped another 23 gratitude tokens, with the exception of Yan Liyuan's. In just 3 days, he was close to maxing out on the 100 gratitude tokens that he needed. Now with 73 tokens, he was super close to unlocking the weapon. Through the open classroom door, Ren Xiaosu saw Wang Fugue trotting towards the school. "Old Wang, what are you doing here?" Ren Xiaosu asked. He wondered if something had happened to Xiaoyu at the clinic. Thinking of this, Ren Xiaosu was about to hurry home with Yan Luyuan. However, Wang Fugue said, "Please get ready. The band will be coming out of the stronghold again. Someone just delivered a letter to me from Boss Luo, and I don't know how they did it, but he actually gave his permission for you to be their guide." Ren Xiaosu froze. His first reaction was one of relief when he knew that Xiaoyu wasn't in trouble. But right after, he got worried because he realized that the band must have had a more obscure and important purpose in venturing into the mountains. How else could they have successfully persuaded Boss Luo into allowing him to go with them? Was it because they had given Boss Luo enough kickbacks? Or could it be that Boss Luo was involved in the band's plan to venture into the Jing Mountains? Either way, it seemed like Ren Xiaosu would have to make this trip. Ren Xiaosu turned around and walked to the school's backyard. Wang Fugue asked anxiously, "Where are you going?" "I'm gonna look for Mr. Zhang to discuss rooming Yan Luyuan and big sister Xiaoyu at the school, or at least living here until I get back," Ren Xiaosu said firmly. Only then would Ren Xiaosu not have any worries. However, it would be a huge mistake if this group of people thought that Ren Xiaosu could be easily pushed around once they reached the wilderness. Chapter 37. The Outside World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 37. The Outside World Translator. Leg Editor. Leg, Mr. Zhang, Ren Xiaosu said politely to Zhang Jinglin, "I hope that you can let Luyuan and big sister Xiaoyu live on the school premises during my period of absence." Zhang Jinglin looked at Ren Xiaosu and asked, "Has it already been confirmed that you must go?" Ren Xiaosu thought for a while and said, "I'm afraid there's no way to reject them anymore. You saw the plight of Zhang Baozhen. Your life and mine are in the hands of those people from the stronghold. If I take the initiative to go and face the dangers now, I might be able to avoid dying. I could even sacrifice the others to save myself when I'm out there. But if I continue to stay here and reject them, I'm afraid that they'll start using underhand methods to deal with us. Is there no better option?" Zhang Jinglin asked. "I'm afraid not." Ren Xiaosu shook his head and said, "But, Mr. Zhang, don't worry. Even if they get wiped out, I'll be fine." In fact, Ren Xiaosu did not want to get involved in this initially. With his current fitness and experience in field survival, he was not worried that he would not make it back alive. However, the reward that was offered to him was unsatisfactory. It would have been better if he, Yen Luyuan, and Xiao Yu could all get into the stronghold. Otherwise, it would all be meaningless to him. He was very eager to get into the stronghold, but he could not leave Yen Luyuan and Xiao Yu behind and go in by himself. What Ren Xiaosu didn't tell Yen Luyuan was that after he had gained his power, he would, on certain nights, toss and turn in bed in his desire to see the bigger world. This town was so small that he could see the other end of it in a single glance from a high place. It was so small that he could hear the voice of a widow scolding some young punks in the west from the east of town. He had also thought of heading out to see the world. In fact, the only thing that Ren Xiaosu was worried about was who would ensure the safety of Xiao Yu and Yen Luyuan if he left. If Zhang Jinglin refused to allow Xiao Yu and Yen Luyuan to stay, Ren Xiaosu would not leave with the band no matter what. It looks like you know what you're doing. Tell Xiao Yu and Luyuan to move over this evening. I'll clean up the house for them in the meantime, Zhang Jinglin said with a nod. Zhang Jinglin felt that no one in town would be more experienced than Ren Xiaosu when it came to surviving in the wilderness. As such, seeing how confident Ren Xiaosu was from his point of view as a teacher, he did not say anything more. Ren Xiaosu was relieved when Zhang Jinglin agreed to his request. Teacher, I've recently managed to save up 5,000 yuan, so please accept it as a boarding fee for big sister Xiao Yu and Yen Luyuan. Take it back. Zhang Jinglin shook his head and said, I'm a schoolteacher, so I only accept payment for tuition. Please don't reject it, teacher. You can use the money to buy some cigarettes to smoke, Ren Xiaosu said. Zhang Jinglin hesitated for a moment before coughing. I'll accept 1,000 yuan as the rent. Ren Xiaosu did not haggle with him any further. He counted out 1,000 yuan and handed it to Zhang Jinglin. He was usually a stingy person, but he would never mull over something so important. Ren Xiaosu would never hesitate to spend money on Yen Luyuan. For the remaining 4,000 yuan, Ren Xiaosu's intention was to hand it over to Xiao Yu. This money must not be handed over to Yen Luyuan in case Xiao Yu got any ideas for the money. At most, she could take all of the money and leave, but Yen Luyuan would not come to any harm as a result. If the money was given to Yen Luyuan instead, his safety would be threatened. Even now, Ren Xiaosu still had some doubts about Xiao Yu. He might be wrong in thinking this way and Xiao Yu would feel let down if she knew about it, but this was probably the best choice to minimize any pain or regrets. Honestly, Ren Xiaosu still felt that their time spent with Xiao Yu was too short. It was not that he doubted Xiao Yu to have any motives. It was just that he had been struggling for so long in this wasteland, fighting for each day of survival with his own hands and leaving a trail of blood every step of the way. Having led such a life, how could he so easily leave their fate to someone they had known for such a short time? Ren Xiaosu returned to the clinic with Yen Luyuan to pack their belongings. He did not expect that their recently acquired new home would be vacated again. Wang Fugue said, Don't worry, I'll look after the yard for you and will absolutely not let anyone else move in. Okay, much appreciated, Ren Xiaosu said. Actually, you don't have to insist on letting them move into the school. With me around, what's there to be afraid of? Wang Fugue laughed. Aren't I also guarding against you? Ren Xiaosu mercilessly rejected Wang Fugue's suggestion. In this town, the school was the safest. Wang Fugue was not angry. He knew what kind of person Ren Xiaosu was, so he expected Ren Xiaosu to guard against him as well. Xiao Yu and Yen Luyuan did not talk at all throughout this, merely looking down and packing their stuff. Only when they finally packed everything did Yen Luyuan ask in a whisper, Do you have to go? I'll come back. It won't be dangerous as long as we take the correct route. If it really gets dangerous, I'll leave them behind and run back here myself, Ren Xiaosu said. Instead of answering Yen Luyuan's question, he just stuffed the money into Xiao Yu's hands. Anyways, I won't be able to spend any money when I'm out in the wilderness, so keep this money safe with you. Okay, Xiao Yu agreed. You should bring more dried food with you. It's too much hard work to depend on luck when you're looking for food in the wilderness. There's no need for that. Ren Xiaosu shook his head and said, not taking into consideration the taste and my tolerance for it, it'll still be very easy to find food once we get dozens of kilometers away from the stronghold. But Xiao Yu's words reminded Ren Xiaosu of something. Since he could place the medicine vial into his mind palace at any time he wanted, could he do the same with other items? Since the medicine vial was a real object with mass, it meant the palace was in a peculiar dimension. If that were the case, Ren Xiaosu would also like to secretly bring along the town's well with him on this trip. After all, the water outside town was not exactly safe for consumption. This was probably what being uprooted meant. Thinking of this, Ren Xiaosu took a cornbread bun next him and secretly tried to store it away into the palace. Then something strange happened. The cornbread was still in his hands. The voice from the palace intoned, storage rights have not been obtained. Ren Xiaosu was stunned. So he really could store things into the palace, but he wasn't qualified to do so yet. He asked in his mind, how do I obtain the rights to access the storage? Unauthorized to answer. The palace went silent and did not answer Ren Xiaosu's question. Ren Xiaosu suddenly felt that the palace did not seem to have its own consciousness. It was just assigning specific quests to Ren Xiaosu based on a certain logic. Its role seemed only to provide guidance to Ren Xiaosu on how to act. After Ren Xiaosu lodged both Xiaoyu and Yan Luyuan at the school, he turned around and left without hesitation. Xiaoyu and Yan Luyuan stood at the school's entrance and looked at Ren Xiaosu's receding figure as he walked off into the darkness. Yan Luyuan suddenly asked, Big Sister Xiaoyu, you know why he handed all the money to you, right? Xiaoyu acknowledged quietly. Will you blame him? Yan Luyuan looked at Xiaoyu. No, Sister Xiaoyu started smiling. Ren Xiaosu walked far away before finally looking back in the direction of the school. He could also see the vast galaxy spreading out across the sky overhead, a sea of stars. He turned around and marched with conviction to the clinic to welcome the arriving guests. A lot of the time, when people looked back on their lives, they might remember a minor decision that they made at a certain point in time. However, that decision could very well turn out to be the crossroads where they experienced a great change in their life. Going left or right took a momentary thought, and once they made that decision, they would have to leap into the unknown without hesitation. But at that moment in time, they would only think of it as a normal day in their lives. Chapter 38. Negotiating the terms. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 38. Negotiating the terms. Translator. Leg editor. Leg Ren Xiaosu was resting in the backyard of the clinic as he waited for the band to arrive. But it wasn't until early in the morning that he heard the stronghold's portcullis being raised slowly. It sucked that he couldn't harvest the vegetables that had just been planted in the yard, those scallions, garlic seedlings, bok choy, and so on. What had to come would eventually come. Ren Xiaosu opened his eyes and walked towards the consultation room at the front. He sat upright with decorum in the seat and waited. Knock, knock, knock. 3 raps sounded on the door. Please come in, the door's open, Ren Xiaosu said. He did not even raise his head, looking like he was busy filling out a medical record. When the door opened, the morning sun shone onto Ren Xiaosu's face. He looked up and was surprised to see a well-dressed woman standing at the door. Ren Xiaosu had never seen someone wear this kind of outfit in town before. Ren Xiaosu had seen her before when he was leaning on the windowsill. This woman was the famous singer from the stronghold, Luo Xinyu. How fanciful, Ren Xiaosu mumbled to himself. Then he looked behind Luo Xinyu at where the band members and private troops were standing. This time, the private army had actually sent out 12 soldiers, even more than the previous expedition. But Ren Xiaosu's attention was still on the girl with the cap, the owner of the perfect firearms proficiency. The girl was dressed in dark blue sportswear and still wearing her cap very low. She seemed to have noticed that Ren Xiaosu was staring at her, so she raised her face slightly. Ren Xiaosu saw her delicate chin but still could not see her eyes that were shrouded by the shadow of the cap. Behind this group of people, a large group of students had gathered. In fact, the band members were also a little confused. Why had these children suddenly gathered here? Li Fatsai's strapping daughter whispered from behind to the girl with the cap, "Are y'all taking Ren Xiaosu away?" No one answered Li Yuqian. It seemed that the girl with the cap didn't like to say much. But suddenly, Ren Xiaosu heard the voice from the palace in his mind say, "Quest. Reject going with them to the Jing Mountains." Ren Xiaosu was stunned. Why was the palace also involving itself in this matter? Typically, the palace would do things for his good, but why was it not allowing him to go to the Jing Mountains? What could possibly be there? Obviously, Ren Xiaosu had been to the Jing Mountains before. Although that place was definitely a little more dangerous than staying in town, it shouldn't be so dangerous that the palace had to remind him not to go. Unless something had changed. Thinking of this, the thought of backing out started to grow in Ren Xiaosu's mind. He wanted was to see the vast world, not how dangerous it was. Luo Xinyu sat down across from Ren Xiaosu. She smiled and said, "You're Ren Xiaosu, aren't you?" Ren Xiaosu looked at Luo Xinyu and started to wonder aloud, "My father's father is called Grandpa, my father's mother is called Grandma." Luo Xinyu was confused. "Are you seriously mental?" Then an officer from the private army walked in. He looked at Ren Xiaosu and laughed. "Stop pretending, we've met before." When Ren Xiaosu looked up and saw the person approaching, he didn't feel so good anymore. Wasn't this Wang Songyang? The man who had searched him twice already. He couldn't keep pretending. Not only that, but Ren Xiaosu also knew he had to go on this expedition no matter what now. He slumped out of his upright posture, leaning against the back of the chair. His entire body suddenly turned indolent. "I'm not going." Quest complete. Awarded basic skill duplication scroll. You may use it to learn another person's skills. Ren Xiaosu's eyes lit up. The quest was complete. Indeed, the criteria for whether a quest was complete as judged by the palace was not based on the established facts but the attitude displayed by Ren Xiaosu. All of a sudden, Ren Xiaosu got a bold idea. Wang Songyang, who was standing by the side, said, "How can you not go?" "I'll go," Ren Xiaosu said in a serious tone. Wang Songyang was confused. However, to Ren Xiaosu's great disappointment, the palace did not give him another new quest. Come to think of it, he could only complete the quest to gift the sparrow to someone once. How could Ren Xiaosu possibly be allowed to keep spamming quests like this? At this moment, Luo Xinyu laughed. "If you're willing to go, that would be for the best. I trust that the letter from Boss Luo has already been delivered to you. If you don't go, you won't have any standing in this town." "I can go," Ren Xiaosu said, "but I have a few conditions." Luo Xinyu looked at Ren Xiaosu with a smile. She felt that their conversation was finally getting somewhere. "Speak." "I want 30,000 yuan as remuneration." "No, you'll only get 10,000 yuan. "Alright then, I'll want an additional 10 bags of salt, 10 cartons of cigarettes, 100 kilograms of rice, and..." Ren Xiaosu started counting on his fingers. Luo Xinyu said calmly, "Let me stop you right there. I'll pay you the 30,000 yuan. "Alright, but I still have another condition," Ren Xiaosu said. "Can't you say everything in one go?" Luo Xinyu said impatiently. "You were the one who cut me off just now." Ren Xiaosu said, "I can go, but Wang Songyang can't." Wang Songyang was obviously a relative of the dead factory manager, Wang Dongyang. He had already abused his authority by searching him twice. If they set off on the expedition together, there might just be some trouble along the way. As such, Ren Xiaosu was reluctant to have a time bomb like him going with him. Wait a moment. Could it be possible that Wang Songyang was expelled because he searched Ren Xiaosu twice and offended Boss Luo in the process? This was a very strong possibility. Which ordinary soldier would be willing to go out into the wilderness? Did they get sick of enjoying their life in the stronghold? Hence, if Wang Songyang were expelled, his unhappiness towards Ren Xiaosu would be even greater. In that case, all the more he should not go on the expedition together with him. It was said that the most worrying thing in this wasteland were the beasts that had grown increasingly strong, but Ren Xiaosu disagreed, as he had encountered and killed some of those before. To him, most worrying in this wasteland were not the beasts but the humans. Luo Xinyu turned to look at Wang Songyang. She didn't expect that these two would have a grudge with each other. Luo Xinyu turned around and glanced at the girl with the cap who gave a veiled nod at her. Luo Xinyu said, "All right, Wang Songyang, you can return to the stronghold." Wang Songyang looked at Ren Xiaosu. With a chuckle, Ren Xiaosu said to him, "You don't really want to go either, right?" The corners of Wang Songyang's mouth curled up. "You're interesting." Wang Songyang then turned around and left. After he was gone, Ren Xiaosu said, "Actually, I still have another condition." But Luo Xinyu had already stood up, and her smile had turned into a stern look. "Lad, my patience has run out." Ren Xiaosu wondered why the people from this stronghold had such frequent mood swings. She was smiling at him a moment ago, so why did her attitude change all of a sudden? Chapter 39. Yang Xiaojin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 39. Yang Xiaojin. Translator. Leg Editor. Leg. For the time being, the group was unable to set off because they were waiting for the replacement officer from the stronghold's private army. A spontaneous decision like replacing an officer, even if it was just a low-ranking one, was enough to show what kind of influence Luo Xinyu had in the stronghold. It was just that Ren Xiaosu had also noticed the girl with the cap surreptitiously nodding at Luo Xinyu. Just who was this cap-wearing girl? Ren Xiaosu suddenly said, "We're going to be a team, but I still don't know what your names are." A band member sneered, "We're no teammates with a refugee. You're only a guide, so don't act like you're close with us." Ren Xiaosu scrutinized this band member as he was seriously considering whether there would be a suitable place to kill him along the way. There was a clear contrast between the refugees in town and the residents of the stronghold. Compared to the fair and refined people in the stronghold, the dirtiness and barbaric behavior of the townspeople were quite evident. But there was an even more essential difference between the two. Their attitude towards life. How did Ren Xiaosu survive all this while? And how did these people live their life in comfort in the stronghold? The environment would greatly influence the development of a person. Their thinking, their character, etc. At this moment, an officer came out of the stronghold and headed straight to the clinic. When he appeared in front of everyone, he spoke, "I'm Second Lieutenant Su Xianchu of the Field Service Division." It was not until this moment that everyone started introducing themselves. However, Ren Xiaosu did not bother remembering any of their names as he continued staring at the band member who'd mocked him. He heard the band member introducing himself as, "I'm Ms. Luo Xinyu's agent. My name is Lu Bu." Ren Xiaosu took note of Lu Bu's name and jotted it into his memory. Suddenly, the cap-wearing girl said, "I'm Yang Xiaojin." Ren Xiaosu was taken aback. So this girl was named Yang Xiaojin. For some reason, Ren Xiaosu felt that this name sounded very pleasant. Importantly, the town's refugees and the people from the stronghold also had another difference, their names. Look at the names of the people from the stronghold. Su Xianchu, Lu Bu, Luo Xinyu, Wang Songyang, Yang Xiaojin, etc. And then look at the names of the refugees in town. Wang Fugue, Wang Dalong, Li Fatsai, Li Yuqian, etc. The names of the townspeople sounded way too crude, but with this, Ren Xiaosu got an understanding of what the duties of those in the team were. As Luo Sinyu's agent, Lu Bu was the person who was in charge of the band's overall affairs. Things like the distribution of daily necessities and other administrative matters were all in his care. 5 off-road vehicles and a pickup truck were dispatched this time, and the trunks were filled with all of their daily essentials. Meanwhile, Su Xianchu was responsible for the management of the convoy and ensuring the safety of the group. Ren Xiaosu had thought that Yang Xiaojin would have some responsibilities as well. However, after listening to all of the introductions, he realized that she was apparently detached from the team, with no responsibilities to oversee. According to Luo Sinyu's introduction to Su Xianchu, Yang Xiaojin was a friend of hers, and she was only following them to Stronghold 112 for an excursion. At that moment, Ren Xiaosu was tempted to say, like hell I'd believe that. After the introductions finished up, everyone boarded their assigned vehicles. There were a total of 20 people going on this expedition, including Ren Xiaosu. But when Ren Xiaosu was about to get into the vehicle, Lu Bu suddenly said, "Don't sit in the vehicle since you're so dirty. Go sit in the bed of the pickup." Ren Xiaosu did not argue with him. After all, was it necessary to take it up with someone who was essentially dead? Ren Xiaosu sat in the cargo bed of the pickup and listened to the loud droning of the vehicle's engine as the town slowly disappeared from his view. At the moment of departure, Ren Xiaosu still had some unwillingness in his heart. No matter how dirty and crappy this town was, he still called the place home all these years. Just as Ren Xiaosu was getting a little emotional, he heard cheering erupt. Ren Xiaosu is leaving at last. We're free now. Ha ha ha, our days of suffering are finally over. Ren Xiaosu turned around speechlessly and looked. He was surprised to see Li Yuqian and Wang Dalong leading a group of students from the school in celebration as they high-fived each other. The other townspeople did not feel much. While Ren Xiaosu was the only doctor in town, it wouldn't really make a difference in their lives even after he left. But it was different for the students. They knew that their lives would definitely get better after today. In this moment, they forgot the fear of being dominated by Ren Xiaosu. A middle-aged man dashed out of the crowd. It was Li Youqian's father, Li Fatsai. Li Fatsai dragged his strapping daughter back home. "Do you not want to live anymore?" Li Yuqian wondered, "What are you afraid of, Dad? Ren Xiaosu is already gone." Li Fatsai griped, "But he'll be back. What if he doesn't make it back?" Li Yuqian argued, "Don't they all say it's very dangerous in the wilderness? What do you know?" Li Fatsai's grip tightened even further as he squeezed her hand. "Even if all of the others perish, he would still make it back alive. And don't you be wishing death unto other people in the future, you hear?" By saying that Ren Xiaosu might not make it back, Li Yuqian was implying that he would die in the wilderness. In reality, the townspeople were numb to such life and death events. It was quite normal for them to experience death in their daily lives. But if such a menacing seed of thought were planted in a child, no one would know what sort of fruit it would bear in the future. Luo Xinyu and the others who were in the off-road vehicles also heard the cheering. They rolled down their windows and looked back to see what was going on. Although they did not know what hatred those people had for Ren Xiaosu, they knew that they were celebrating his departure from town. Lu Bu was sitting in the front passenger seat and muttered, "How unpopular does he have to be for them to celebrate his departure?" In the back seats, Luo Xinyu laughed and said, "When we get back, we should make a proper inquiry into this guy. I want to know exactly what he's done in this town." "Why would you want to find out more about him, Xinyu?" Lu Bu scorned. "He's just a punk kid from the hamlet. If we weren't looking for a guide, would he have any chance of interacting with people like us? This is a blessing that he earned through his previous life, but he doesn't cherish it." Only Yang Xiaojin remained silent as she sat in the vehicle. She seemed to be thinking about something. At the school gate, Xiaoyu was holding on to the bars of the fence as she looked at the end of the road leading out of town. She watched Ren Xiaosu and those vehicles turn into tiny black dots in the distance. She turned around and went into the backyard of the school to wet a towel with some water. Then she walked into the school and wiped Yan Liuyuan's forehead with it. He had become unconscious after coming down with a sudden fever. Mr. Zhang went to Old Wang's grocery store to buy some anti-fever medication while Xiaoyu stayed by Yan Liuyuan's side to take care of him. At this moment, Yan Liuyuan was groaning, and it seemed like he was having a bad dream. Xiaoyu gently put her hand on Yan Liuyuan's forehead and whispered, "Don't worry, Liuyuan, he'll definitely make it back." Chapter 40. I want to be with my crackers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 40. I want to be with my crackers. Translator. Leg editor. The route to the Jing Mountains was difficult to travel on as it was mostly made up of dirt roads. While sitting in the pickup truck bed, Ren Xiaosu occasionally saw some concrete surfaces on the road. But for whatever reason, those roads had crumbled a long time ago and were in a state of decay. Ren Xiaosu had once heard from the schoolteacher, Mr. Zhang, that the concrete roads were left behind from the time before the cataclysm. The structure of the roads had degraded after so many years, and most of them were now covered by layers of dirt. This was the case with most of the major roads linking the strongholds together. However, these dirt roads had a slightly more even surface due to more vehicles traveling on them. In reality, not many vehicles traveled between the strongholds. Back at their own town, Ren Xiaosu and the others would only see non-local vehicles coming to Stronghold 113 about a dozen times a year. Even that was considered quite a lot. The wilderness was not all desolate. On the contrary, it took only dozens of kilometers after leaving town before they were greeted with lush greenery everywhere. Over the years, the vegetation got even lusher. However, Ren Xiaosu didn't feel that this was a bad thing. Back in town, food was usually considered a scarcity. Since he could not have meat, he would eat more vegetables. He had also noticed that the cabbages planted by Zhang Jinglin were getting larger than before. Ren Xiaosu even specifically asked Zhang Jinglin whether he had used any fertilizers to grow them, but he denied it. This was a good thing. Perhaps one day a single potato might even be enough to feed a family of 3. When Lu Bu made Ren Xiaosu sit in the bed of the pickup, he never could have expected that Ren Xiaosu would do something. The cargo bed was filled with food and water provisions they brought with them from the stronghold. There was no need to lock such items up, so they were simply covered with tarps. While Ren Xiaosu sat in the cargo bed, he lifted the tarp out of curiosity. He had a look under it and immediately saw the word, cracker. Then he lifted another tarp and saw bottled water. Because of the bumpy road, the vehicles did not go fast. In reality, the band did not fear wild animal encounters. After all, they had 12 soldiers from the private army who were carrying loaded weapons with them. As such, they did not have to worry too much about any beasts. Although a wolf attack had taken place earlier, the wolves were long gone and hiding in the mountains several hundred kilometers away from here. There was absolutely no need to worry that they would suddenly return. According to past experience at the stronghold, it would take at least a year of recuperation for them to come back and be active in the area again. So what worried the convoy the most at the moment was what would happen if the vehicles broke down. Half of these soldiers from the private army were trained in automobile repair, but they couldn't possibly bring a full set of spare parts for the expedition with them. While this made the journey slower, it was better than having to walk there. In between, Ren Xiaosu insisted on getting out to relieve himself. As a result, the entire convoy had to stop and wait for him. This made them even more displeased with him, but Ren Xiaosu was not bothered by it. He faced everyone's complaints as if it were nothing. The convoy continued moving until noon. When they came to a stop, Lu Bu jumped out of the vehicle first. He laughed happily and said, "I've stayed in the stronghold for too long. It's such a great feeling to come out here and see the sweeping vistas." A soldier laughed and said, "Yeah, that's right. I've gotten terribly bored from staying inside the stronghold all the time. In fact, everyone had such thoughts from the moment they set off on this expedition. They were all in the mood to enjoy the scenery, chat, and laugh. However, this would likely not be the case in a few days. In the past, Ren Xiaosu also thought that it was rather lovely when he first came out to the wilderness to hunt. Lu Bu beckoned for everyone to get out of their vehicles. He said, "Let's get out here and eat something. After we finish, we'll continue on our journey and try to get to the Yun range before it gets dark. We were there the previous time, and there's a clearing that's suitable for setting up camp." 1.https://n.wikipedia.org/wiki/yun_range, everyone was chatting and laughing as they got out of the off-road vehicles. Several of the soldiers gathered to smoke together. Their faces were full of happiness when they started puffing away. Lu Bu called for the band to go over to the pickup truck. He did not have the authority to order the soldiers around. It was neither down to his nor Luo Sinyu's influence that they were able to hire 12 soldiers from the private army to come with them on this trip. In actual fact, their band was here to act as a cover for the private troops to carry out their mission. In such circumstances, others might think that Lu Bu and Luo Sinyu were very influential. But they knew better. As Lu Bu walked towards the pickup truck, he said to a band member next to him, "We'll distribute the cigarettes that we brought along to the soldiers in a bit." "Alright, how many should we give out to them?" the band member asked. "Bring out 1 carton first. Didn't we take 10 cartons along with us? There's no need to be so anxious. We can hand them out slowly." Lu Bu smiled and said, "We have a fresh group of soldiers joining us, so everyone will start getting along once we get familiar with one another." When Lu Bu came to the back of the pickup truck, he received a shock as he turned around and had a look inside. Holy shit! Ren Xiaosu, what have you done? Ren Xiaosu looked at Lu Bu and said, "Why do you look so shocked?" "I didn't do anything at all." He burped. As he had a little too much to eat, he couldn't help burping. Ren Xiaosu stood up to stretch himself, then brushed off the cracker crumbs on his body. Lu Bu leaned over into the cargo bed and looked around. His heart ached. "Are you a pig? How can you eat so much? You ate 5 packets of crackers all by yourself in one morning." Quite frankly, it had been a long time since Ren Xiaosu had eaten so much. In their poorest days, he would leave his food for Yan Luyuan to eat. They only became rich recently, so he hadn't had the chance to be extravagant yet. Besides, the crackers they brought along were delicious. There were both sweet and salty ones. Importantly, salt and sugar were luxury goods in town. Most of the time, they would just have plain boiled potatoes or some similar food to eat. Where would they get the chance to eat such delicious food like crackers? There was even a lot of potable water available in the vehicle. "Look how bloated your belly is." Lu Bu roared. "You must be 4 months pregnant, right? Don't you feel uncomfortable stuffing yourself with so much food?" Ren Xiaosu snapped, "It's only because you let me sit here in the bed that this happened. But now that you mention it, it does feel a little uncomfortable." Ren Xiaosu got out of the pickup and started running into the distance. "Y'all can eat first. I need to take a dump." While Ren Xiaosu ran far away, Lu Bu and the others felt frustrated in the wilderness. A band member hesitated before saying, "Why don't we just let him sit inside the vehicle?" Lu Bu stared at him. "Why should we let him sit in the vehicle? Is a refugee like him qualified to sit together with us, huh?" The band member did not sound so confident at his suggestion anymore, but he still muttered, "If we continue to let him sit in the bed of the pickup for 2 more days, I'm afraid that our provisions will not last until Stronghold 112. At the words, Lu Bu made a rough estimation of Ren Xiaosu's appetite. Then he sighed and said, "Indeed, we won't be able to last until then." In the end, everyone unanimously decided to let Ren Xiaosu sit in the vehicle. When Ren Xiaosu came back, he was unhappy to find out that he had to sit in the vehicle. I don't want to sit in the vehicle. I'm not qualified to sit together with y'all. I'm just a refugee. Let me go, let me be with my crackers. Are you people human? Eventually, things were solved after everyone worked together to cram him into the vehicle.